Good day, everyone. Our group will discuss today the ICT in education policy areas. So, the 21st century is the period of the enabled, empowered, and enjoyed individuals' globalization. It is defined by a dynamic force that encourages individuals to collaborate and compete in a world driven by technology and information and operating in a global society. This is the time in which our coming generations will carve out a place for themselves as citizens of this country and members of the global village. So the objectives for today's discussion is to first constructively define ICT policy and its importance to education, and second, elaborate the significance of the various education policy areas used in ICT. Going further, our topic includes 11 main policy statements: ICT in formal education, ICT in non-formal education, access and equity, infrastructure, curriculum design, delivery and assessment, training and capacity building, management support and sustainability, open distance and e-learning, multi-stakeholder partnerships, research and development, and lastly, monitoring and evaluation. So in order to deliver our topic efficaciously, we use tools and applications like PowerPoint slides, laptops, and mobile phones. And before anything else, what is ICT policy? So basically, it is a roadmap to ICT implementation strategies. Hence, ICT in education improves engagement and knowledge. So the first among the 11 policies is ICT in formal education. Here, assuring that educators in elementary, secondary, vocational, and higher education employ ICTs in their teaching and learning methods. Next, promoting the use of e-learning and open distance learning, or ODL. When we say e-learning, it is a learning system based on formalized teaching, but with the help of electronic resources. On the other hand, ODL is a system wherein teachers and learners need not necessarily be presented either at the same place or same time, and is flexible in regard to modalities and timing of teaching and learning, as also the admission criteria without compromising necessary quality considerations. Raising awareness of the importance of ICTs among students, instructors, and parents. And lastly, making ICTs available at all levels of formal education and allowing students at all levels of education to use ICTs as a tool and a methodology in their learning. Conversely, the second policy is ICT in non-formal education, promoting the use of community learning and information centers and libraries and open and distance learning centers to support literacy and learning opportunities to all. Through these learning strategies, it integrates meaningful community engagement with instructions and reflections to enrich the learning experience with a greater emphasis on reciprocal learning and reflection. Moreover, expand activities to include the use of video, radio, and TV. And lastly, creating and leveraging partnerships with private and community-based organizations to provide learning opportunities and improve ICT literacy for all.
For the third policy area, access and equity. Access and equity means policies and approaches are responsive to the individual needs of people whose age, gender, cultural, or ethnic background, disability, sexuality, language skills, literacy or numeracy level, unemployment, imprisonment, or remote location may present a barrier to areas. For years, equity of access in education has referred to the ability of all students to receive an education from qualified teachers in buildings that are safe and conducive to learning in a district with sufficient resources that are reasonably equal among other schools in the same state. The significance of this policy area are the following. using ICTs to provide educational opportunities to all citizens regardless of gender, age, geographical location, or special educational need. Second, providing a basic ICT model to all schools and community centers regardless of gender, age, geographical location, or special educational need. And the last one is providing access to ICT in learning centers for people in very remote, rural, and economically disadvantaged areas. For the fourth policy area is infrastructure, wherein it refers to the provision of accessible, universal, affordable, reliable, modern, and high-quality levels of ICT facilities and services, enabling legal and regulatory environment that ensures the growth and development of the information and communications technology sector. The significance of this ICT policy area are the following. First, it provides all formal and non-formal education institutions with the essential infrastructure to facilitate the adoption of ICTs within the education systems. Second, developing infrastructure in close collaboration and coordination with relevant ICT stakeholders and partners to optimize synergy and cost effectiveness. The last one is explore alternative energy solutions where necessary.
The fifth policy area is curriculum design, delivery, and assessment in ICT education. Providing curriculum at all levels of education. The use of digital resources are encouraged to meet the requirements of the curriculum and supplement it. The proposed web-based digital repositories will host a variety of digital content appropriate to the needs of different levels of students and teachers. Interactive ICT tools for teaching and learning are used to promote a blended learning approach and establish appropriate mechanisms and guidelines for regulating the development and use of electronic content. Next, exploring options for obtaining copyrights of existing electronic material in the medium term. Teachers and students will be oriented in prevailing copyright regimes, different types of restrictions on reuse of content, and the need to respect copyright. The last, creating and developing specific national electronic content in all subjects on the long term to be based as supplementary material, aligning it with the national curriculum and revising the curriculum accordingly. For the sixth policy area, training and capacity building. Training and capacity building of teachers will be the key to the widespread infusion of ICT-enabled practices in the school system. Teacher educators will be suitably oriented and trained to use ICT in their pre-service teacher training programs, providing pre-service training of teachers on the effective utilization of technology both on software and hardware in their teaching and learning to ensure that teachers are able to access a wider range of high-quality tools and resources to create innovative, challenging, and engaging learning opportunities. Plan, schedule, and deliver more personalized and effective teaching and learning, and communicate and collaborate more extensively and effectively with their students and parents, ensuring that students are able to access and exploit world-class educational tools and resources to improve the quality of engagement and learning outcomes. Explore and develop their knowledge, skills, and understanding through a more personalized learning experience. Communicate and collaborate more extensively and effectively with their peers, teachers, and community. Experience a greater range of formative assessment to support their educational progress. Monitor, reflect on, and manage their own learning.
So topic number 7 is the management, support, and sustainability. This policy will focus on making necessary budgetary provisions associated with the capital and operational cost of ICT facilities, developing an income-generating strategy in line with ICT in education programs, promoting public-private partnership through adapt and sponsor a school programs for ICT penetration in schools and higher education in terms of infrastructure. No. Promoting public-private partnership through adopt and sponsor a school programs for ICT penetration in schools and higher education in terms of infrastructure, content development and delivery, and capacity building. Adapting a strategy for technical support and maintenance with adequate staff and budgets to service the needs of the centralized and decentralized level of education. So public-private partnership is they provide better infrastructure solutions than an initiative that is wholly public or wholly private. Each participant does what is thus best. So topic number 8 is the open distance and e-learning. The ICT in education focus on setting up an effective ICT support to ODL or the open distance and e-learning. Building capacity and competency in ODL delivery including development of content, training of instructors, and delivery of content. Enable to blended face-to-face and e-learning approaches as required for developing appropriate, effective, and efficient means of meeting both national educational objectives and the needs of students.
5, 6, go.
So, distance e-learning has not only the virtue to be inclusive for students that cannot participate in tertiary education because of time, space, and capacity constraints. It can also offer to students more personalized ways of learning that collective face-to-face learning. It can be helpful even in small groups.
I'm gonna discuss to you what is a multi-stakeholder partnership. But before we discuss or before we start, let me explain what is a multi-stakeholder partnership. Well, a multi-stakeholder partnership is a very broad term that describes groupings of civil society, the private sector, the public sector, the media, and other stakeholders that come together for a common purpose, which here refers to the intent to drive changes in ICT policies, development, ensuing implementation. But first, let's start with engaging local, regional, and global partnership in efforts to integrate ICTs in education and to unveil research and innovations to improve the education system. So next, creating an enabling environment conducive to global and local partners' investments and to support the education system, including, let's start with. So first is the peer-to-peer research and collaboration. Is to enhance collaborative learning as increasing the level of students' participation and encouraging online discussion among students outside school. Next is twinning between public and private educational institutions to transfer and exchange best practices and share available resources. To the extent that public and private school students differ, one can expect public and private schools to differ as well. Next is support the integration on ICTs in education. The need for development of ICTs is a global resolution and has been a subject of great significance to all mankind. Next is financing of ICTs in education are a governmental and organizational process by which revenues are generated through taxations, tuition fees, and philanthropy distributed and expanded for the operational and capital support of formal schooling. Next is the encouraging the private sector companies to adopt schools to bring about school improvement is to provide quality education for all and to respond to new priorities depends on the availability of adequate funding for education. The mechanism through which school funding is governed, distributed, and monitored play a key role in ensuring the resources are directed to where they can make the most difference. The next topic that I am going to discuss is the research and development. And let's start with the first sentence that we are seeing here, which is the conducive a needs assessment and establishing a mechanism for continually identifying best practices and gaps and researching innovative solutions to improve the education system. If educators experience applying new knowledge and skills indicate that they need to learn more, the team initiates another round of professional development. This cycle of continuous improvement ensures that educators are constantly working to become more effective in addressing students' learning problems. Next is creating a venue to facilitate a participatory approach enabling grassroots research and quality improvements, especially through showcases, seminars, workshops, and conferences. It's a gathering of people with a common interest or background with the purpose of allowing them to meet one another and to learn about and discuss issues, ideas, and work that focus on a topic of mutual concern. Next is enhancing higher education institution research and development capabilities. Higher education institutions to optimally participate in national transformation through the production and transfer of knowledge that is fundamental to the country's engagement in the knowledge-based global economy. And lastly, supporting publication of publicly funded research open under access licenses. It generally involves users being able to gain access to articles in full text from the open web without having to pay a license fee or a pay-per-use fee or having to provide additional information.
Good day everyone. For the 11th policy, monitoring and evaluation. Working in close collaboration with key stakeholders to establish criteria, indicators, and benchmark for assessments of implementation and impact of ICT in education. Letter A. Creating processes and systems that promote information sharing, equity, transparency, and accountability for all stakeholders in the implementation of this policy. B. Using ICTs to support the efforts of different stakeholders in monitoring the performance of education process and institutions. C. Integrating EMIS in all stakeholders' activities for monitoring and evaluation. D. Conducting regular reviews and assessments of the value added and impact of the multi-stakeholder partnerships on the education system at all levels. This policy provides them with tools to develop more effective future strategies which coordinate the introduction of computers with national education policies and programs related to changes in curriculum, teaching method, assessments, and teacher trainings.